panic seized me. I crept over to the peephole and looked through. She was standing under the flickering amber hallway light. She looked completely disheveled, her makeup smeared, and in her right hand, she was holding a heavy steel crowbar. Infidelity is a betrayal as old as time. Usually, it ends in tears, divorce papers, and broken homes. But sometimes, the secrets you keep don't just break your heart, they break into your house. When you invite a stranger into the darkest, most hidden corners of your life, you never truly know what you're letting in. Tonight, we have 3 true, deeply unsettling stories about affairs gone terribly wrong. No ghosts, no demons. Just the chilling reality of human obsession and the terrifying lengths a spurned lover will go to claim what they think is theirs. Sit back, lock your doors, and whatever you do, don't look under the bed. Story 1. The crawlspace. I'm not a good guy. I'll start by admitting that. About 3 years ago, I was 5 years into a marriage that had gone completely stale. My wife Karen and I were more like roommates. That's when I met Chloe at a work conference in Chicago. She was 24, sharp, funny, and gave me the kind of attention I hadn't felt in a decade. What started as hotel bar drinks turned into a raging, secret affair that lasted for 8 months. Whenever Karen went out of town for her pharmaceutical sales job, I'd invite Chloe over. Yeah, I know. Scumbag move. But right around the 8-month mark, the guilt started eating me alive. Karen and I started going to couples therapy, and things were actually improving. I realized I wanted to save my marriage. So, I met Chloe at a diner across town and broke it off. I expected tears. I expected her to throw coffee in my face. Instead, she just stared at me with this blank, unreadable expression, took a slow sip of her water, and said, "Okay, Dave, if that's what you want." She got up and walked out. It felt too easy, but honestly, I was just relieved. I blocked her number, deleted my burner email, and committed to fixing my life. For the first 3 weeks, everything was totally normal. No angry texts, no slashed tires, no dramatic appearances at my office. I thought I was in the clear. Then, the little things started happening. I'd come home from work before Karen, and the house would feel off. A window in the guest room would be unlatched. The TV would be on a different input than I left it. Once I found a half-drank glass of water on the kitchen island. I asked Karen about it, and she said she hadn't been home all day. I made the absolute dumbest rationalization possible. I convinced myself I was just being paranoid, losing my memory because of stress at work. Instead of changing the locks or setting up cameras, I just shrugged it off. A month after the breakup, Karen had to go to Dallas for a 4-day weekend. I drove her to the airport, kissed her goodbye, and headed back to our empty 2-story house in the suburbs. The first night alone, I fell asleep on the couch watching ESPN. I woke up around 2 a.m. to a sound. It was a soft, rhythmic thump coming from directly above me, the master bedroom. Now, any sane person would have grabbed their keys, bolted out the front door, and called the cops from the driveway. But my groggy, idiot brain told me it was probably raccoons in the attic, or maybe the wind knocking a branch against the roof. I grabbed a heavy metal flashlight from the kitchen drawer and started creeping up the stairs. The house was dead silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. As I reached the top landing, the thumping stopped. The door to the master bedroom was cracked open, letting a sliver of moonlight spill onto the carpet. I pushed the door open. The room was empty, but my closet door was wide open, and my wife's dresses were thrown haphazardly all over the floor. My heart hammered against my ribs. I flicked on the flashlight and shined it around the room. That's when I noticed the square access panel to the attic ceiling above the bed. It was pushed slightly ajar. "Hello?" I called out, like an absolute moron. Silence. Then, a voice whispered from the dark square hole in the ceiling. "You said you'd leave her, Dave." My blood ran completely cold. It was Chloe. Before I could process what was happening, the attic panel was violently shoved aside, and Chloe dropped down onto the center of my bed. She looked completely insane. Her hair was matted, her face was covered in dust and dirt, and this is the part that still gives me nightmares. She was wearing Karen's wedding dress, the dress we had preserved in a box in the attic. She didn't have a gun, but she had a long, rusted screwdriver gripped tightly in her right hand. "I've been up there for a week," she smiled, her eyes wide and manic, "listening to you two. It made me so sad, Dave. So I decided to fix it." I froze. Total fight-or-flight failure. I backed up slowly toward the door, holding the flashlight up like a weapon. "Chloe, put the screwdriver down. Let's just talk about this." "We are talking," she lunged. I slammed the bedroom door shut just as she threw her weight against it. The wood cracked under the impact. I held the handle with everything I had while she stabbed the screwdriver through the thin hollow core wood, the metal tip missing my eye by an inch. I let go, sprinted down the stairs, and practically threw myself out the front door into the freezing rain. I called 911 from my neighbor's bushes. It took the cops 10 minutes to arrive. They searched the house top to bottom. Chloe was gone. But what they found in the attic made me vomit in the front yard. She had made a little nest up there right above our bed. There were empty food wrappers from our pantry, bottles of water, and hundreds of photos of me and Karen. Every single face of Karen was scratched out with a screwdriver. Chloe was arrested 2 days later trying to buy a bus ticket to Mexico. My marriage? It didn't survive. Karen divorced me, not just because of the affair, but because I brought a psychopath into our sanctuary. I live in a high-rise apartment now, but every time I hear a creak in the ceiling, I stay awake until sunrise. The idea of someone secretly living in the attic right above your bed, wearing your wife's wedding dress, is pure nightmare fuel. I have to ask you guys, if you were in Dave's shoes and heard that thump from the ceiling, would you have grabbed a flashlight and investigated, or immediately called the cops from outside? Drop a comment and tell me your survival strategy, because I read every single one. While you're down there, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to Creepy Digest. It tells the algorithm to push these crucial stories out to more people. Now, let's get into our second story and find out what happens when the threat is invited through the front door. Story 2. The perfect replacement. My husband, Greg, was a regional manager for a logistics company, meaning he was on the road 4 days a week. We had a 6-month-old baby girl, Lily, and I was drowning. Postpartum depression, sleep deprivation, the works. I was desperate for help, so when Greg suggested we hire a live-in nanny and housekeeper, I practically wept with relief. He handled the interviews and found a woman named Megan. She was in her early 30s, quiet, incredibly organized, and had glowing references. She moved into the guest suite in the basement, and for the first 2 months, she was an absolute godsend. Megan took over the night feedings, kept the house spotless, and cooked amazing dinners. I finally started feeling like a human being again. She was great with Lily, and Greg was thrilled that the house was running smoothly. Everything felt perfect. Too perfect. The weirdness started subtly. I began noticing Megan adopting my habits. If I bought a specific niche brand of oat milk, she'd start drinking it exclusively. I bought a new, expensive floral perfume, and a week later, I smelled it lingering in the hallway. I brushed it off as her just looking up to me. But then, one Thursday evening while Greg was out of state, I went down to the basement to put some towels in the laundry room, which was right next to Megan's bedroom. Her door was cracked open. I didn't mean to snoop, but I glanced inside. Sitting on her nightstand was a framed photograph of my husband. Not a family photo, just Greg, smiling, looking handsome in a suit. My stomach plummeted. I walked in further. On her bed was a silk nightgown, my silk nightgown that I had lost weeks ago. I panicked. I didn't call the police because technically, stealing a nightgown and having a weird crush on my husband isn't a crime. Instead of packing up Lily and going to a hotel, or even just firing her over a text, I made the colossal mistake of waiting for her to come back from the grocery store so I could confront her face to face. Alone. In an isolated house in the woods. An hour later, I heard the heavy thud of the front door closing. I had Lily in her playpen in the living room. I walked into the kitchen. Megan was putting away apples, humming a tune. "Megan," I said, my voice trembling. "We need to talk. I went into your room." She stopped humming. She didn't turn around right away. When she did, the sweet, subservient nanny persona was entirely gone. Her face was stone cold. "You shouldn't have done that, Sarah." "I want you out of my house," I demanded, trying to sound authoritative. "Pack your things. I'm calling Greg, and then I'm calling the police." Megan actually laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "Call Greg. He won't answer. He's on a flight to Aspen." I froze. Greg had told me he was in Ohio. Megan took a step toward me. "Greg and I have been together for 4 years, Sarah. Long before you got pregnant and trapped him. He promised he was going to leave you. He even hired me so I could learn how you run the house, how you take care of the baby, so the transition would be seamless when you were gone." My brain short-circuited. My husband hadn't just cheated on me. He had moved his mistress into my home to replace me. "But Greg is a coward," Megan continued, reaching into the butcher block and slowly pulling out a heavy chef's knife. "He keeps delaying it. So, I figured I'd handle the transition myself." She lunged. I screamed, grabbing a heavy cast-iron skillet from the stove and swinging it blindly. It caught her in the shoulder, sending her stumbling back into the island. The knife clattered to the floor. I didn't wait. I sprinted into the living room, scooped Lily out of the playpen, and bolted for the front door. I fumbled with the deadbolt. Behind me, I could hear Megan scrambling to her feet, screaming obscenities. I threw the door open, ran out into the snow in my socks, and scrambled into my SUV. I didn't even put Lily in her car seat. I just held her to my chest, locked the doors, hit the push to start, and threw it in reverse. As I peeled out of the driveway, I saw Megan standing on the front porch, illuminated by the porch light, holding the knife and staring dead at me. I drove straight to the police station. They arrested Megan that night. When they interrogated her, she showed them hundreds of text messages between her and Greg, outlining their entire sick plan. Greg really had hired her on purpose. He wanted to push me into a mental breakdown so he could get full custody of Lily and move Megan in permanently. He claimed he never wanted her to hurt me, but frankly, I didn't care. I pressed charges, filed for a brutal, highly publicized divorce, and got sole custody of my daughter. Greg lost his job and his reputation. Megan is currently serving time for aggravated assault. I moved across the country, but the trauma is permanent. Every time I hire a babysitter for a few hours, I hide nanny cams in every single room. You never know who you're letting through your front door. Story 3. The Wrong Apartment. I was 22, working as a barista, and painfully naive. A regular at my coffee shop, Mark, asked me out. He was 40, charming, wealthy, and eventually admitted he was married, but separated. Yeah, the oldest lie in the book. But I was young, dumb, and loved the expensive dinners and hotel stays. I didn't care about his wife. I figured that was his problem, not mine. We had been seeing each other for about 3 months. Mark never came to my apartment because it was tiny and in a rough part of the city. but he knew my address from ordering me food deliveries. One Tuesday night, Mark texted me frantically, "She found my burner phone. It's over. Do not contact me." I was annoyed, but honestly, I was getting bored of sneaking around anyway. I texted back, "Fine," blocked him, and went about my week. I figured it was just dramatic married people stuff. I had no idea the absolute hell I had just invited into my life. 2 days later, the prank calls started. I'd answer, and there would just be heavy, ragged breathing on the other end. Then, a click. I assumed it was telemarketers or some weirdo. But then, things got physical. I lived on the ground floor of a crappy apartment complex. My bedroom window faced a narrow alleyway. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of something scratching at the screen of my window. It sounded like fingernails against the mesh. I froze in bed. I could see the silhouette of a person standing just outside the glass, entirely still. I held my breath. After about 10 minutes, the shadow moved away. Did I call the cops? No. I was terrified the cops would find out about the affair, or that it was just a local homeless person and I was overreacting. I made the ultimate horror movie mistake. I decided to handle it myself. The next night, I stayed awake, sitting in the dark in my living room, clutching a baseball bat. Around 2 a.m., I heard heavy footsteps crunching on the gravel outside my front door. Then, the doorknob slowly started to turn. It was locked. Instead of walking away, the person started violently shaking the handle. Then, a woman's voice hissed through the crack in the door. "I know you're in there, Jessica. I know what you did." It was Mark's wife. Panic seized me. I crept over to the peephole and looked through. She was standing under the flickering amber hallway light. She looked completely disheveled, her makeup smeared, and in her right hand, she was holding a heavy steel crowbar. Before I could even back away, she raised the crowbar and smashed it directly into the doorknob. The sound was deafening. The old, cheap wood of the doorframe splintered instantly. She hit it again, and the door kicked open. I screamed, dropped the bat, and ran down the short hallway into my tiny bathroom, slamming the door and throwing the deadbolt just as she burst into the apartment. I crouched in the bathtub, pulling the shower curtain around me like an idiot, as if thin plastic would stop a crowbar. My hands were shaking so violently, I dropped my phone on the tile floor. I could hear her heavy boots walking slowly across my living room floor. She was dragging the crowbar against the drywall, making a horrifying scraping sound. "Where are you, little girl?" she taunted, her voice a mix of a cry and a scream. "He showed me the texts. You think you can just take my life and walk away?" She walked down the hallway, stopped right outside the bathroom door. "I can hear you breathing." The crowbar tore through the center of the hollow bathroom door. Wood shards flew into the tub. I screamed hysterically, crying, begging her to stop. Another hole. I could see her wild, furious eyes peering through the splintered wood. She reached her hand through the hole, blindly grasping for the interior lock. I didn't have a plan. Pure survival instinct took over. As her hand fumbled for the deadbolt, I grabbed a heavy bottle of shampoo and slammed it down onto her fingers as hard as I could. She shrieked in pain and yanked her hand back. "You little bitch!" In that split second, I heard sirens wailing in the distance. A neighbor must have called 911 when she smashed the front door. She heard the sirens too. The apartment went dead silent. Then, I heard her footsteps sprinting back toward the front door, down the hall and out into the street. The police arrived 3 minutes later. They found me still curled up in the bathtub, completely catatonic. I gave them Mark's name and his wife's description. Here is the part that still keeps me up at night. The police went to Mark's house in the suburbs to arrest her. They found Mark in the kitchen. He had been beaten to death with a blunt object hours before she ever came to my apartment. His wife was gone. Her car was found abandoned near the Canadian border a week later. She had emptied their bank accounts and simply vanished. They never caught her. I moved back to my hometown and changed my name. But every time I hear a door handle rattle or hear the scratching of branches against a window, I wonder if she's finally come back to finish the job. If there's one lesson I learned, it's this. Never mess with someone else's life. You have no idea how crazy the person on the other side might be. If you take anything away from these stories, let it be this. Secrets don't just stay buried. Sometimes, they kick your front door down. Before you go, drop a comment and tell me, which of these 3 domestic nightmares terrified you the most? Have you ever had a sketchy encounter where someone turned out to be completely different than who they claimed to be? Sound off below. Let's get a discussion going. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to Creepy so you never miss an upload. Sleep well, and thanks for watching.